Hello, and welcome to this year's MPD Design Fair live streaming from the Center for Digital Technology and Management. If you haven't come across us, the CDTM offers a honors degree in technology management supported by the TU Munich and the LMU. Each semester, we welcome 25 new students from diverse backgrounds who set up to become the innovators of tomorrow. Tonight, after 13 weeks of hard work, our students will show the results of our second course, Managing Product Development, or MPD. 5 teams spend their semester exploring industry-specific problems, iterating over solutions, and finally building 5 amazing products.
But before we start with the product pitches you're all waiting for, we wanted to give you a very brief overview of what this year's road to the design fair has looked like. We started the semester in October and we launched our very own Corona police, aka José. And that actually allowed us, with the measures we introduced and with everyone in the class being vaccinated, to mostly host the sessions in person. We were also very much hoping to host this event with a live audience for this semester again, but unfortunately Omicron crossed our plans for that. So here we are back with a live stream again, and we welcome you to that. Now I would hand over to José to quickly guide us through what's happening this evening.
Yes. First of all, you're going to hear the product pitches. That's what you're here for, right? But don't worry, there's also going to be some room for your questions. Actually, after every product pitch, we're going to have 5 minutes of Q&A, which you can join by joining cdtm.de/livestream and ask your question on the Slido chat right next to the live stream. If you're joining in from YouTube or any other social media, we want to encourage you to go to cdtm.de/livestream and join the conversation. Like every semester, the projects were encouraged by a project partner. The project partner set up the initial problem question and coached the teams throughout the entire development. After each Q&A, we will also hear from the project partner and see what their perspective on the entire thing was. At the very end, we want to invite our scientific director, Jörg Clausen, to give us his perspective on this year's design fair. When we end the live stream, you still have the opportunity to learn more about the projects. Each group prepared a landing page with a lot more of information that you can visit and learn more about. And if you still have a lot of questions, they will be hosting an individual Zoom session where you can join, ask more in-depth questions, congratulate them for their projects, and maybe even try out their prototypes. Both the Zoom links and the landing pages are to be found on the website cdtm.de/livestream.
Okay, I think that's enough from us now. Let's now get started with the product pitches. Despite all of our hopes to actually host a live audience this semester, it's not us who's faced the worst of the situation. It's definitely the healthcare personnel. Our first team that is up now is Akura. Their goal is to reduce the administrative burden of nurses and actually free up their precious time to be where they are needed the most, right by the side of their patients.
Today, I want to share a story. Story about my grandma. My grandma is 90 years old and she's in desperate need of a hip replacement surgery. However, it's been 3 months and my grandma hasn't been able to get her surgery yet. Due to this, she is currently stuck in her 3rd floor apartment, not able to go out, meet people, and enjoy life. And I know that this is not only my grandma's case. Maybe some of you or someone you love has been in a situation where you had to wait for a surgery that got delayed. Why is that? One of the main reasons is that we are missing the availability of nurses who take care of patients after surgeries. In fact, by 2030, in Germany alone, we're going to miss the capacities of 250,000 nurses. For my grandma and everyone else to be able to get their surgeries in time, we need more care capacities, and we need them right now. What is even more frustrating is that right now, these care capacities are not being used in the best way. Nurses are actually spending twice as much time on documentation and planning rather than on actual patient care. Why are we spending so much time on these tasks?
Well, to understand this, let's have a look at a day in the life of a nurse. This is Ada. During her shift, Ada has to care for 12 patients. For incoming patients, she has to create an initial plan with all the intended care tasks. Also, every time she visits a patient, she is required to document every single observation and care activity in different forms and written reports. Now, to the right, we see a simplified floor plan of Ada's hospital station. To plan or document, she needs to access the shared computer across the hallway. However, she has no time to do this in between patients, because every time she would need to first log into her account, then click through all the different patients and available measures to find the relevant one, and finally document everything. Instead, she directly goes from patient to patient and makes quick notes on paper or tries to memorize everything. Nevertheless, the pile of pending administrative work, including both documentation and care planning, just keeps piling up with every patient visit. As a consequence, Ada is forced to finish her patient visits early to be able to enter all the data into the hospital information system. With Akura, we want to reinvent this highly inefficient care administration process to give Ada back her time for actual patient care. We derive 3 causes for the inefficiencies in care administration and directly address each of them with our solution. So first, as we already saw, planning and documentation involves a lot of double work, as Ada needs to take notes first and then transfer them into the computer at the end of her shift. We solve this by providing a single mobile platform where all these tasks can be done right at the point of care. Next, entering all the data into the computer system is still very cumbersome. Finding the right entry point for the right patient just takes too long. We avoid this by intelligently connecting care planning with documentation so that we can anticipate the documentation. And finally, Ada still has to manually create her care plans and written reports for each patient. Thus, Akura directly suggests automated care tasks and text entries for the report.
So how would Ada use Akura during her shift? A new patient just arrived at the station, and Ada needs to create a care task plan for this patient. So she opens up the Akura app on her phone, where she can immediately see all of her patients. She can then add a new patient, enter the required master data, and select a diagnosis. In this case, it's a hip contusion with the additional risk factors of decubitus and dementia. Akura then intelligently suggests the care task for this diagnosis, these risk factors, and also based on predefined station routines. Next to the main care tasks, we can also see that an orientation talk has been added due to the risk factor of dementia. She can then save the care task plan, and the patient appears on a home screen at the top. As she's already in room number 1, she quickly wants to check in on the room neighbor, Frank Lehmann. Here, she can see an overview of the patient. She can see the past care tasks as well as the upcoming care tasks. These upcoming care tasks are derived from the care task plan that was also created for Frank Lehmann when he entered the station, similar to what we've just seen for Christa Herford. She can then perform the bandage check and the repositioning and quickly check them off and at the same time document them in the Akura system. For the vitals measurement, Akura already pre-fills the form with the last measured values, so Ada only has to make slight adjustments. She has now successfully finished all of the planning tasks that were planned for Frank Lehmann. As she's about to leave the room, Frank Lehmann complains about strong neck pain. As pain assessment is a very important part of the care report, Ada wants to quickly add a pain assessment. A pain assessment actually in the care report needs to be in written text form. So she quickly opens up the pain assessment screen and the Akura app, and just with a few inputs, she's able to generate a text for this exact neck pain for the care report. With one click of a button, it's saved to the care report of Frank Lehmann. Now she was able to successfully finish all of the planned tasks, as well as adding an ad hoc observation. So let's recap. Instead of piling up notes, walking from patient to patient, she can now document and plan on the go, right at the patient, with minimal effort required. The time she saves using Akura can then be spent on what matters most, treating her patients.
For the value of Akura, we believe there's a market that is already highly attractive today and that shows strong growth potential. While our solution could potentially be used by all care facilities in Europe, translating into a total addressable market of 2.1 billion euros, we believe the most likely buyers of our solution are hospitals in Germany that are best prepared for the adoption of new digital tools. Capturing 100 of these kind of hospitals as a 4% share of the German market, we can expect annual revenues of 23 million euros. However, within the next 5 years, the share of hospitals best prepared for digitalization is expected to strongly increase, driving an annual growth rate of 16% for our market. This growth forecast is strongly pushed by a legislative tailwind that took off over the last 2 years and that also makes now the right time to enter this market. On the one hand, the Hospital Future Law strongly enforces significant investments by hospitals into digital infrastructure. At the same time, the Nurse Empowerment Law turned nurses into revenue drivers, incentivizing their empowerment through supportive tools like Akura. To acquire our solution, we aim to offer hospitals a flexible and attractive pricing model that accommodates their distinct financing preferences. While our standard package entails a monthly software as a service license fee of 40 euros per nurse, we also have the option to purchase our software with a one-time payment for a long-term contract period in case the hospital wants to declare it as an investment to get public funding for. Our competitive landscape is quite diverse in terms of focus and size. Within this space, we're the only tool that combines a mobile-first approach for documentation with assisted planning. Meanwhile, our competitors are mainly rooted in the PC-based legacy corner with static systems that are very complicated and time-intensive to use. This puts us in a unique position to quickly become the preferred tool of nurses to support them in their daily tasks. But what's next? After developing our app with a partner hospital, we aim to roll out our solution to the first customers by the beginning of next year. Once our initial product proved its market fit, we aim to expand it further by integrating with Cliniserve's patient communication solution. This forms a strong basis on the way towards our vision of becoming the leading tool not only for care administration, but for the coordination of all care delivery in hospitals in general. We're Team Akura, and we're dedicated to ensure the increasing availability of nurses for patients like Kay's grandma, so they don't need to wait for their surgeries anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Team Akura. And now it's your time to be part of the conversation. Please use the Slido to ask your questions. And we already have the first question from the audience. How do you deal with constant germs and phones, which are far more than, for example, a toilet seat? Over to you.
Thanks for that question. Obviously very relevant, as hygiene is strongly important in environments like the hospital. However, given that obviously, for example, other digital tools like PCs, but also, partly obviously the paper forms that are used by nurses today, we believe, and also that has been proven in the interviews, that the usage of mobile phones is actually not to be of particular concern for them, because obviously the benefits of it are clearly there, and obviously there's the possibility to always disinfect screens and hands, so that shouldn't be a problem.
We have another question from the audience. How do you handle concerns about data privacy?
Thanks for the question. Actually, with our solution right now, and also with current legislation, it's already possible to do a solution like we built while complying to all the data standards. And of course, we know that patient information is one of the most important information that we really don't want to give out of ourselves. So we will comply. We want to comply with all the data standards to ensure that everyone can trust our solution.
And another question refers to, will hospitals really spend 230,000 euros per year for this? Is Akura better than hiring 4 to 5 new nurses?
Well, thank you very much for that question. That is really interesting. Of course, the better option would be to hire more nurses, but as we have seen previously in the graph about the nurse shortage, the fact is that there is not enough supply of nurses. So for our pricing, we followed a value-based pricing strategy with a value capture of around 20%. So we think that we are only capturing 20% of the value that we create for hospitals, and thus we think that it's realistic, and also based on our user interviews, that hospitals will pay that much for our solution.
Another interesting question. Anonymous says, great idea. Have you thought about using voice recognition instead of typing everything?
Sure. Actually, this question was quite a lot asked, or also in the interviews. It was of great importance. And we've talked to a lot of nurses, and the nurses actually prefer not to speak about the diagnosis in front of the patient. So if we would use voice recognition, we would not be able to do it by the patient, but rather in between patient visits. Thus, the problem would just move to the hallway of nurses speaking on the hallway about diagnosis of the patients. So in order to avoid that, we implemented it not without voice recognition, but for example, for creating care report entries, it makes sense to actually add a dictation function where voice input would actually help.
Okay, I think that's enough questions for now. I think it would be really interesting to hear the perspective of the project partner. I want to introduce you to Cliniserve. Cliniserve has made their mission to fight the shortage of personnel in hospitals by mainstreaming communication with their digital solutions. I'm really happy to introduce Kirin Körner. He's the co-founder of Cliniserve and a CDTM alumnus, and he provided coaching to the teams for the last 13 weeks. Kirin, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and big thanks obviously to you for doing this great presentation. It was amazing, especially how clear it was and how straightforward it was in this so complex space of nursing, and how quickly you worked into the space of nursing. So I really enjoyed that. I was also impressed how quickly you worked your way into this problem space. I really enjoyed every discussion we had, not only because of the discussions, but I really learned a lot also from your insights and from your thoughts. And I really appreciate how often you iterated about, over your solution and didn't give up with a solution you were not 100% convinced about. It was really fun to, as a CDTM startup, to have you as an MPD team with us. For the audience, perhaps we started this project with a very simple question. So why is documentation so outdated in hospitals? And what can we do about it? So you have to know that with our core product, we have around 1,000 nurses using our smartphones daily. So we have established smartphone interfaces for nurses, and we felt like there's an opportunity to also tackle the documentation. And that's basically where we set this MP team. And we weren't, for ourselves, not aware of how complex it will be for this MPD team to solve or to tackle this problem. And I'm really impressed about the solution and all the insights we also got as a company, which is just great for us and will help us a lot. As you already heard in the pitch, we have deep talks with our innovation hospital, so where the MPD team also got in touch with about really kicking off a pilot there. As always in hospitals, it takes some time until they really got the pilot running, but hopefully we will have first results in the next, or in this year actually. Thanks again for the MPD team, and also thanks to the CDTM and the CAs facilitating the MPD.
Thank you very much, Kirin. Probably nurses saw the worst of this pandemic, but now we're going to talk about another target group who probably had it really bad. Parents. Our next team Team Olga has made it to their mission to help parents better understand the individual needs of their babies. With their audio-first solution, Olga wants to give parents the best opportunity to enjoy the time with their kids. Over to you, Team Olga.
Hey everyone, it's great to be here. I'm Chris, and I have my little girl Maggie with me here today. She's 7 months old now, and as you can probably imagine, it's been a wild ride ever since she was born. It's one of the most meaningful times, but also one of the most exhausting times of my life. As you can probably imagine, I sleep like 5 hours or so each day, which makes it really hard to focus throughout my work. And I'm not talking about 5 hours straight, but I'm talking about 1 hour here, 2 hours here, and when she sleeps for an hour or so, I try to get some sleep as well. And sometimes when she's crying, I still don't really know what's going on.
And it's not only Chris who's exhausted. Actually, to put Chris's problem into perspective, how much do you have to sleep to really feel ready for the next day? 9 hours? 7? Okay, maybe you manage with only 6, but at least you can sleep through those 6 hours, right? Well, for most parents, it's quite different. Actually, 43% of parents only get 1 to 3 hours of undisturbed sleep each night. And sleep is not the only challenge they face. A baby normally cries for about 2.5 hours each day, even if it's healthy. And if it's unwell in any way, this number immediately jumps up. So, what's the underlying problem here? Just like all of us, babies have individual needs and habits. As they can't express those with words, especially young and first-time parents struggle to build healthy habits in order to address the individual needs of their children. So, let's see how we solve this problem, which Chris is going to show to you now in our app.
Not working. So it's showing a notification that says it's time for food, and I should probably feed Maggie now. And also there's a podcast that's recommended to us. So if I open the notification, I will jump to the library page. At the very top, I see exactly this recommendation for a podcast I could listen to now. Below that, I see my latest courses. Right now, I'm listening to The Sleep of 7 Months Old. And below that, I can check out other courses that I might be interested to in the future. But as it's 3 minutes long audio, I'm not going to listen to that now, but rather get back to that later. For now, let's jump to the analytics page. At the very top again, I can see the recommendation, and it also tells me why this is a recommendation. It says, Maggie usually eats around that time. I can also double check that with the charts below. So here are the feeding charts. I can see how many times she's been fed throughout the day. I can also see when usually she's hungry. That's in the mornings, at noon, and also in the evening at around 6 p.m. or so. I can also have a look at her sleeping patterns. I can see how many hours she sleeps per day, and I can also see how her different nap lengths compare. Oh, and it seems like she's actually hungry right now, so let me put my phone away and feed her real quick. Now, as you can see, it's really hard to do this, having only one hand. And imagine I had 0 hands to use. One cool thing I can still do, something I really love about Olga, is use the voice assistant feature. I can just say, okay, Google, talk to Olga.
Hello, I am Olga. What can I do for you?
And now I can ask her to please track my feeding.
All right, I saved your feeding activity.
And it will appear in a second on the screen, and it will be active until I stop it. But for now, let me step aside and see what the team has to tell you about.
All right, let me summarize again for you the 3 core features that make Olga such a valuable product for young parents. First of all, we know that every baby is unique. Therefore, we have to really understand the individual baby and make tracking their activities as easy and effortless as possible. And for that, we have our voice-enabled activity tracker. Second of all, we don't only want to track data, but we want to really make use of them. And therefore, we have our advanced analytics and insightful visualizations to give parents a better understanding of their baby's needs and ultimately create a better intuition. Last but not least, we don't want parents to have to check their phone all the time, but we want to give them the right content at a time when they really need them. And therefore, we have our action recommendation and personalized content that is curated by our medical experts. So those three features already make Olga a great product. But it's also the perfect time right now to enter the baby tech market, because we observed three main trends. The first one is the quantified self trend. You probably all know the rise of the Apple Watch and maybe even the Oura Ring. Actually, already 1 out of 3 person is using some kind of device to track their health parameters. And we think it's going to be just as important for babies. Second of all, there's going to be an increased need for efficient time usage, because more and more people have to work and parent, and also an efficient work-life balance has become more and more important, and we think that Olga is going to really help with that. Last but not least, there's going to be more money spent on digital childcare, and that actually boils down to 2 reasons. First of all, as first-time parents become older and older, they already have more money to spend. And second of all, as we, the generation of digital natives, are sooner or later also getting to the age of becoming parents ourselves, we are sure that parenting will become more digital in the future.
Now that you've heard about the trends shaping the success of our product, you're probably wondering, what's our business model? And it's simple. The usage of our app is based on a subscription fee. The Olga journey always starts with a 14-day trial period. And afterwards, our customers are able to choose between a standard plan that can be paid on a monthly and a yearly basis, and our lifetime plan, which is for those parents who want to use Olga for a longer period of time on a discounted price. Now, taking into account our users' preferences for those 3 pricing options, we expect an annual revenue of 145 euros per customer. Combining this with an estimated future customer base of 65,000 users based on competitor numbers, we project a yearly revenue of 9.6 million euros. And this is also our serviceable obtainable market, which we aim to achieve by the end of the year 2024. But it's only limited to the DACH countries. And studies show that already 1/3 of all parents with children in the age of 0 to 3 years old in Europe are relying on childcare and parenting-related apps in their daily lives. Addressing those, we see a market opportunity of 1.3 billion euros. But we aim even higher. As you've just heard, there are some specific trends increasing the base of parents that are relying on technological solutions in their daily lives. This is why, including all of those parents in Europe, we see a total addressable market of 4.2 billion euros for Olga.
But of course, Olga is not the only app in the baby app market. And the question is, who do we compete with? So, while analyzing our competitors, we focused on the features that they provide, their usability, and the area that they operate in. So, we identified some sleeping apps that helps parents to understand the sleeping patterns of their babies and to improve them. Also, there are some activity tracking apps that help parents to understand the developmental milestones of their babies and track their daily activities such as nursing or sleeping as well. But what Olga is aiming at is integrating these 2 areas and going beyond them by providing parents with a holistic approach to the childcare and helping them to identify the unique healthy habits of their babies. And you can clearly see that with our features, namely with our voice-based input and personalized content, we can outperform our competitors. And we believe that with our feature set, we can occupy a very competitive position in our market. So, what's ahead of us? We want to finalize our MVP by the end of January. And since we deal with a very sophisticated user group, namely with parents, we want to test our MVP with our test users in the 2nd quarter of this year to reach the product market fit. After that, Olga is ready to launch. We will launch in the DACH region in App Store and Google Play Store by the end of this year, and for the next year, we are planning our first big partnership. Namely, we want to integrate Olga with Levi Health Bracelet, a hardware of our project partner. By doing this, we hope to give parents even more insights about their babies. So finally, let's meet the team behind Olga. As you can see, we are a very diverse team with different backgrounds, but what we have in common is our passion
to make parenthood easier and even more enjoyable. But I think while we were talking, Chris has already finished feeding Maggie, right, Chris?
That's true, and as she usually does, she falls asleep right after doing so. So I'm gonna put her back in her buggy, and then just track that real quick in my app. In the feed screen, I can just stop the current activity. It will appear in the list below from the past activities, and I can simply start a new sleeping one for as long as she sleeps. And this is also a great way for me to listen to the podcast from before, which is really interesting, I hope, and I'm gonna do that on a walk. See you guys around.
Welcome back to the feeding stages from 6 to 12 months course.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Team Olga. We are happy that Maggie now actually fell asleep, so we do not want to wake her up, but nevertheless, we still have a few questions from the audience coming in. And I'd like to start with the first question, which is, how do you ensure that parents aren't spending more time on their phone than actually taking or talking to their babies without a phone between them?
So the main feature is the voice-enabled activity tracking, because we realize that parents don't want to take out their phone all the time and track the activity, because there are many activities throughout the day. But through the voice enabling, we say you can leave your phone apart, you don't even have to open it. And also we provide them the action recommendation when we think it's necessary, so they don't have to browse through all the recommendations all the time. So they only have to take a minimal amount of time on their phone.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And there's another question regarding the wearable integration. Can you explain a bit more about the wearable integration you mentioned?
So yes, we want to collaborate with our project partner, Levy Health, and integrate it with their smart wearable. It's like Apple Watch, to give you an example, but for small babies to track their vital parameters. And we hope by collecting the data and gathering insight from Levy Health to give parents even more insights, and also to adjust our smart analytics to be even more precise and give parents even more insights about how to act upon their baby's needs and habits.
Thank you very much. One question the audience has is also concerning pricing. Will people really pay 145 euros per year for voice tracking? Everything else is or will be in Baby Plus real game changer, will be automatic tracking of sleeping and feeding.
Yes, also a really good question. So actually 145 euros is just our average revenue that we will make from our users per customer, also considering the more expensive lifetime plan. So there's also the option for some users to only use Olga for a couple of months, which will be way cheaper than 145 euros. We did a competitor-based pricing for this, and we also know that there's some apps only doing the tracking, especially milestone and development tracking, for free, but always the insight and analytic apps always do charge money, and as that's also one of our main features, plus or in addition to our voice-based tracking, we think that the pricing model that we came up is relevant for our users.
And then I think we will close with one last question. What actually happens with the data once the child is not a baby anymore?
Okay, so talking with two mics now. I can either download it, I can export it, so I can just use it for reference in the future, or I can keep it as a memory, or they can ask us to just delete it if they don't feel comfortable with it on the phone or on our servers anymore. But basically that's up to the parents to decide. There's no need to delete them because we won't delete them.
Nice. I think we've addressed a lot of questions now, and we would now like to welcome the team's project partner, which is Levy Health. Levy is a deep tech company which is igniting a new era of baby well-being and parenting. And tonight with us here we have Nadine Wunderlich, who's the founder of Levy, and she's going to tell us a bit about her perspective on the solution.
Thank you, Tessa. So firstly, we want to thank the team for their outstanding cooperation we had We were really thoroughly impressed, especially by the entrepreneurial spirit that the team showed. And in addition, we also would like to thank the management team of the CDTM because the entire program was very well structured and put together. And that effort really ensured a very smooth experience for everyone. And I also, to tell more about the team, during the project, like the meetings we had, they were always very fantastic. And we were amazed by the methods that Christoph, Florian, Julia, Nicolas, and Sophia were using. And even more impressed by their ability to tackle every aspect of the project, from user research to business planning, and also to completing their fantastic prototype. We from the Levi side, we had heard much about the program before, and we had high expectations, but they were not only met, but they were undoubtedly exceeded. And we are, with regard to the prototype, so we are incredibly happy with the result. It's a fantastic prototype, and we're looking forward to adopting it and to continuing with development. And the product, it is a perfect fit for Levi, because it is supporting us on our mission to ignite a new age of parenting, and also a new era of digital health for infants. So again, thank you very much, Christoph, Florian, Julia, Nicolas, Sophia. Thank you so much for your dedication, for your effort, and it's been a very great pleasure working with you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nadine. We're very happy you enjoyed working with the team. And now we're actually moving on to one of the most discussed topics during the pandemic, grocery shopping. But instead of quick access, the next team is actually thinking that traditional grocery shopping is here to stay. Let's see what Team Swadeo has come up with to make your shopping experience great.
Grocery shopping sucks. It's just annoying, and we have to do it week by week. And there's barely anything that has changed about the last 100 years about grocery shopping. So let's think about the journey and think about the inconvenience. On the one hand, it's queues. Waiting in line is just annoying. And we spend about 28 days of our life waiting in queues in supermarkets. And then once we arrive to pay, we have to unpack and repack the groceries we just bought back into our bags. So to sum it up, there's simply something wrong with the checkout journey. But along the customer journey in store, there's also a problem, and that is this sheer overload of products. An average supermarket holds 15,000 products, but we only take home about 80 of those per month. And we also try to follow a specific diet, but the sheer overload of products just makes it really hard for us to follow this diet. But in fact, about over a third of customers are trying to follow diets such as living vegan or living more healthy, and about 80% of customers would actually value getting recommendations from a supermarket on how to live up to these values. So the question is, why aren't supermarkets giving us recommendations and helping us living up to our preferences? The answer is quite simple. They can't. To store operators, individual customers are basically like black boxes, or to talk in supermarket terms, it's a little bit as if they were wearing paperbacks over their head. And Swadeo is here to lift the black boxes and also the inconvenience of the checkout by introducing a solution that helps operators as well as customers. For the customer side, we provide a mobile app that allows an autonomous shopping journey, including checkout. For the operator side, we offer a store operator dashboard that helps the operators understand the data they collect with the mobile app and make sense of it, and help them with consulting their customers in real time. So let's see how this works in practice in a supermarket journey.
Awesome. So let's go shopping with Swadeo. Before I start, I want to check my shopping preferences first. So here you see a list of all the different preferences that Swadeo supports. I'm personally interested in living more healthy and more sustainable, so I check these two options. But since I'm also a student and I'm living on a budget, I check this third option. Swadeo now will give me recommendations to help me achieve my shopping goals. But Swadeo also rewards me for living up to these goals by giving me bonus credits if I buy the correct products. In my case, you see that I already gained 6 health credits over the last shopping trips. So let's see what I can do with them. In this section, you have an overview of all the different coupons that currently the store is offering. And it looks like I can buy Rewe tomatoes for 6 health credits, which is awesome since I want to do some pizza with friends tonight. I quickly click on add, and they're added to the shopping basket. So now I can continue shopping. Next, I will go for some pizza dough. With my scanner, I only have to hover over the barcode, and the item is automatically added to the shopping basket. Next, I move on to the cheese, and I pick the pizza cheese. Again, I just scan the code, and this time the recommendation engine informs me that there's a different type of cheese which is 25% off. Since I want to save money, I put this out of my bag, back on the shelf, and go with the discounted one instead. All right. Awesome. And finally, I need some topping for the pizza. And I like salami, so I pick this and scan it with my app. This time the recommendation engine tells me that there is a different, more sustainable alternative. And it's the vegan salami from Rügenwald and Mühle. Since I want to be more sustainable, I put this back on the shelf and I scan the Mühlen salami. Now I also got 3 sustainability credits for changing my product choice. All right, finally I want some dessert, and I go with pudding, I add it to the basket. And actually I forgot to pick the tomatoes before, so they go to my basket as well. Let's have a look on the list. It looks like I have everything I need, and now I can proceed to checkout. Here I see one last time all the items that I bought, and as you can see, I got the tomatoes for free and only paid with my health credits, which saved me a total of €1.59. I also earned 3 sustainability credits for changing my choice of salami and going with the vegan alternative. I decide to go with PayPal and proceed. Finally, I have the opportunity to rate my experience, and I say it was awesome. Well, mostly awesome. I click on finish, and now the shopping trip is over. I actually can now conveniently proceed and don't have to wait in lines, and yeah. So this was the shopping experience from the Swadeo customer, and next we're looking at how the operator is benefiting from our solution.
As an operator, I can use Swadeo to find out exactly what's going on in my store. When I log on, I see the dashboard, which shows me all the most important data points at one glance. I especially like that I can see what customers think about my store. So if there's a problem, I can fix it as quickly as possible. I can even see how the experience from the customer side has changed through time. The second feature that I really like is the Analytics tab. Here I can drill deep in the different data points to find out exactly what I want, e-commerce style. Now, just today I was checking what's the average basket value of people using Swadeo versus the regular checkout. And I saw that it's around 5% higher with Swadeo, probably because of the recommendations. The average basket size is larger with Swadeo customers as well. And at the bottom, I can also see the occupation of the store throughout the day. Now, speaking of recommendations, at the offers and recommendations page, I can see which recommendations have been performing the best and how it's impacting my top line. Another handy feature for me are offers. It happens sometimes that I order too much of one item. If that happens, I can just add it to the offers page and it'll show up in the Swadeo app for all shoppers. This helps me waste less and earn more. Now, overall, Swadeo has helped me know my customers better so I can offer them exactly what they want. And what's even more important to me is that the customers love it.
let's briefly summarize the key value adds of the 2 demos you just saw. First and foremost, by using our Scan and Go app, the customer journey completely changes. Say goodbye to long checkouts, say goodbye to repacking, it just like adds a lot of convenience. On the other hand, operators, for the first time ever, get insights that they can act on individual customers. This can be extremely valuable in the future, especially. Second, through our recommendation engine, it supports the customer on all steps of the journey and helps them to achieve specific dietary goals, save time, and just navigate through the jungle of abundance. On the flip side, for operators, the recommendation engine is a completely new way to address customers and influence the in-store journey. It's a big potential to also increase overall revenues through cross and upselling. And lastly, through our approach of gamification, we combine the best of both worlds. Consumers can get something for free or can get a discount, and operators benefit from increased customer retention. The pricing for these value adds is based on a transaction fee that is then paid by the operators. It lies somewhere between 0.15% for one store and the basic version, and 0.3% if it's applied to multiple stores and the Pro version. Here, you must know that profit margins in supermarkets are extremely thin. In most cases, they're less than 2%, which is why investments are a big commitment for operators and they usually are shy of upfront payments. But this pricing model allows us, or allows also these operators, to try out our solution, implement it, and not have any upfront payment or risk. Which brings us to our initial market. If we were to introduce Swadeo to all of the European retail segments and apply our pricing, we would be looking at a market potential of over 7 billion euros. However, for the beginning, we focus on very specific parts of the grocery retail sector. And this leaves our addressable market at roughly 420 million. And assuming that we are able to get a 5% market share by 2025, we arrive at an initial annual revenue potential of 21.1 million euros for Swadeo. We are Swadeo, your Scan and Go solution. We are Swadeo, your Scan and Go solution that brings customized shopping experiences to traditional stores and helps you make your shopping experience more enjoyable. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Team Swadeo. I actually can't wait to taste that pizza later tonight. Well, now it's time for your questions, and the first questions are already raining in, so let's hear the first one. What are the next steps? How will the product evolve?
Okay, so first of all, within this quarter, we try to really get our MVP rolling and finalize all the core products. But then already we want to shift the focus more to a new trend that is emerging, which is fully autonomous stores. So after we got our first customer and store where we are using our solution, we then want to focus our development more on enabling autonomous stores, which will mostly be small convenience stores that also then require a sophisticated check-in mechanism, age verification, for example, and then this should be the main target group for Swadeo in the future.
Great. Our audience wants to know, how can the store keep control that no one steals products and doesn't scan them?
So the research we found is that there's always going to be people that steal, but that could also do that in the traditional supermarket journey. So in the end, throughout checks that are done regularly, but of course not with every customer, you can ensure some kind of like psychological way of making people pay and knowing that they could be checked at any time, as similar as why you are not walking across a red light.
Great. Another question. Don't systems like Payback already provide operators with individual customer information?
Well, that is true to some degree. So first of all, the penetration or the adoption of payback or similar systems is not that high as one might assume, and especially within the younger group, the adoption is very low. And second of all, payback has an incentive of basically bringing people to their platform, but payback themselves, they don't care if you spend your money with Rewe or if you spend it at the gas station at Aral. Whereas So what Swadeo also enables the operators is that they really build up a brand that incentivizes people to go back to only their brand and not to Aral or whatever. So here's a completely different incentive mechanism that is better for the brands.
And our very last question for Team Swadeo, how does it work if a product needs to be weighted on a scale?
So for the beginning, it would work as in a traditional store where if you have fruit and veggies, you would weight them on a scale and then put a sticker on it to basically scan it. But in the future, we could, of course, also integrate features such as recognition of different fruits and veggies to extend this product feature.
Thank you very much, Team Swadeo. Now it's time to hear from their project partner. Vitulus is a healthcare company in Germany who's currently operating multiple COVID-19 test center and vaccination centers. Vitulus is looking into new business opportunities that leverage their strong operation background in logistics, for example, retail, to prepare for a post-pandemic growth. I want to welcome co-founder Frederic Lapacek, who will tell us more about their experience working with the team.
Hello, everyone. This is Fabian. I'm Frederic. We're both the co-founders of Vitulus. And I want to tell you a little bit about our cooperation with the CDTM. So in look for our post-pandemic future, we came across a change in the Bavarian Store Closure Act for digital micro-supermarkets, which allowed specific kind of supermarkets to open 24/6, which, as probably all of you know, is a big innovation in Bavaria. So we thought that the MPD project at CDTM was a great means to ideate on this opportunity. So when we first started working with the CDTM team, we were quite impressed how well they conducted interviews with customers, store operators, and identified the many challenges they face. We were especially impressed with the number and quality of interviews they conducted and the further research they put into this idea. I think, as you all saw, the Swadeo team solved the problem they identified in an imaginative way, not only solving a problem for the customer, but also for the store operator.
The cooperation went so well that we now signed our first lease for a space. Now we have a location, we have an app, and we have a team in the background. If you were impressed with the team as us, you should join the team as well. We definitely thank you, the CDTM and our Swadeo team.
And we hope that we can all welcome you in the supermarket with the Swadeo app once it opens.
We let you know.
Healthcare, parenthood, and retail are only 3 of the industries our students set up to revolutionize, and I can't wait to tell you about the last 2. But first, let's take a break. Stand up, shake your legs, get something to drink, and we will meet back in 15 minutes so I can show you how our students plan to revolutionize the transport industry and tackle a problem as big as climate change.
Welcome back to this semester's design fair. It's great that you join us back here after the break. We've already had a look at 3 really important industries. We looked at healthcare, at grocery shopping, and also at parenting. Please remember to ask all the questions you have in our Slido chat, and if you would like to speak to the teams after the pitches, please join them in their respective Zoom rooms later. Now we're going to move on to another super trending and important industry, transportation. Do you also believe that car sharing, scooter sharing, or bike sharing makes life easier in our urban areas? Well, our next team that's coming up, Team Jimba, actually makes sure that all your favorite means of transportation are in their best condition. Welcome, Team Jimba.
Sorry. I'm sorry for being late, but the chain of my bike just broke halfway. And you know, I usually love to take advantage of these different means of transportation that are available as a service, such as for subscription or for sharing. But more often than not, something about the assets is just broken, such as the chain of the bike I just came with. But why is that? I myself also work in the mobility as a service, or MaaS business, as the owner of a car-sharing company. And all I can say is that we often face similar issues regarding our assets, because in order to deliver our cars in good condition and in time, we often have to rely on third-party service providers, which you can imagine as big parking lots with maintenance services included. We call these businesses compounds. All right, and the problem here is that the entire process, from sourcing vehicles from a manufacturer to the compounds and then to the end customer or a city, including all the necessary checks, is a rather intransparent one to me. Well, and that is because our compound partners still like to stick with old-style communication, such as back and forth emailing, in order to communicate any kind of obstacle regarding our assets. This is not only time-consuming, but also highly prone to losing information along the way, or creating misunderstandings regarding the procedure, which will eventually leave us with a bad user experience, with higher costs on our side, as well as a loss of reputation, due to, for instance, scratches that haven't been taken care of in a proper way. I am fully aware, though, that this is just my perspective, but let's also hear about the compound's perspective.
For me, as an operator of such a compound, life is also not always that easy. Imagine, about 100 cars arrive each day at the compound. That means having to fill out 100 of these paper protocols. Manageable, you would say, right? All right, let's imagine 5 of those cars arrive scratched. We would need to communicate these damages to our partners via email or phone calls. But the communication doesn't stop there. Then maybe we disagree on how to fix the issue, so that's even more communication. But it doesn't end here. Maybe we don't agree on the price, which is more communication. And this, every day.
And that is when Jimba comes in. Jimba is a platform that facilitates communication between MaaS companies and their partners. It offers features such as asset-specific chats or ticketing and dashboard systems where you can manage all of your assets in one place. And actually, lucky for us, we got a live connection to a compound where a new car arrives. So let's see that.
Cars just arrived at our compound, and for all of them, we need to do the inbound check. For this, we simply open the Jimba app. And as first, we land at the overview of all the cars which are currently in our compound. And the cool thing about Jimba is that the information about the cars is updated in real time, because Jimba integrates into our ERP system and ERP system of our partner. And let's do the inbound check of this freshly arrived Golf. For this, we search for the vehicle identification number in our database. Here it is, WV, and here I already see our Golf 7. As first, we land on the overview page of the car, and let's jump right into the inbound check. In the inbound check, we check the exterior and interior of the car for damages. We check the tires and some other parameters which are given by our partners. So we will start with the exterior. Are there maybe any scratches on the car? Let's have a look. So it looks fine here. It looks fine on the doors. It's also clean. Oh yeah, here on the rear wheel I see some scratches, and scratches like that have to be documented for our partner. But with Jimba, it really works like magic. All we have to do is just to find the corresponding part here in the app, wheel left rear, and press that there is a damage. At first we write the description. There is a scratch on the wheel. And then we take a few pictures of the damage. The first one is a close-up picture, and the second one would be a picture from a bigger distance, just for better reference. And here we go, the damage is already documented. Usually I would also check the rest of the car, but I will just save you time and do it later. And actually the best thing about Jimba is that I don't have to write any cumbersome emails at all. The communication about the damages we found on the car is done via the car-specific chat, and let's have a look at the chat. It's here on the bottom. And here you see that Jimba automatically created the message saying that we found a damage on this Golf, and now we only need to wait for an answer from our partners. And while we are waiting, I will check the rest of the car. So stay tuned.
Up in the chat regarding a scratch on the wheel, and to be honest, by looking at it, it kind of looks severe to me. So I'll quickly suggest to get it done as soon as possible. Type in the answer and send the message. And like this, Jimba really solves the problems I initially described, right? Because communication, first of all, now is clear and centered in one specific chat in which both of the parties have access to whatever has been communicated regarding this one particular asset, including the visual proof of the damage. Also, we got full transparency, right? Because along the entire process, the car's condition will be communicated to me from now on in real time. And on top of that, the automatically generated documents on the compound side will be seamlessly integrated into our IT systems. Instead of filling out a paper-based protocol, signing it, scanning it, sending it via email, and manually inserting it into our databases. In addition to this, we get this handy dashboard overview, where we can see a number of interesting things as well, such as any news regarding our new scheduled vehicles or the pending ticket section. And if you pay attention to this, you can already see the Volkswagen Igor just took care of at the compound in the pending ticket section. And it's already here because a couple of seconds ago, I confirmed the scratch to be taken care of, which triggered the creation of the pending ticket. And as soon as I can see it, I can be assured that this will be immediately communicated to our compound partners as well, which gives me assurance that they will actually take care of it properly and in time.
But even better, also I, as a compound owner, profit hugely off of Jimba. First of all, the asset-specific communication is way more efficient. But most important for me, the automated assessment and planning of the damage repair automatically takes into account which spare parts we have available at the compound and also how much manual labor is needed. It really just works like magic for me. And all the while integrating perfectly seamlessly into our ERP systems. Now, you might wonder, how many people do actually have this problem like me? Let's have a look at the numbers to find out.
In Jimba, we have identified 3 main customer segments depending on the type of vehicles that mass companies actually use and charge them, as you can see in this slide. You may think that this is a small market or a niche market, but we calculated a total market of 8 billion euros by taking into account every vehicle under mass operation in Europe with Jimba pricing. We broke down this into a sum of 1.7 billion euros, and we did that because we cannot assume that every mass company to be interested in a solution like this, and because we cannot assume an homogeneously distributed adoption rate between the customer segments that I just presented. And finally, by assuming a 5% market share within the first 3 years of operation, we have a market of 85 million euros a year. But this market is not only big at the moment, it's projected to grow bigger in the future. And this is because several external factors, such as the political pressure on cities, because they are responsible for the majority of the greenhouse emissions, which will require new mobility solutions. Second, more and more people coming into cities to live, and that also will require new mobility solutions to come into play, such as the ones that mobility as a service companies provide. And finally, customer preferences are simply shifting. If you look in our group age, more and more people are less want to have like heavy assets and own heavy assets, but require more flexible and cheaper solutions.
Our team has been working hard the last couple of months, and we promise you that once you start using Jimba to manage your assets, you'll never be late again. And we're, of course, open to any questions you might have.
Thanks a lot, Team Jimba, and also thanks to the correspondent right from the compound. We of course already have a few questions from the audience, and one question is concerning potential additional use cases for the solution. So have you also thought about selling this software to, for example, car dealerships?
For sure, thank you for the question. The solution can be also used at the car dealerships just to keep track of the car dealerships' cars, of the cars they sell. And we also thought not only about the car dealerships, but the solution can be possibly also extended to some services like electronics as a service, where you can, for example, rent a smartphone or something similar. So there are actually quite a lot of other very similar use cases, and our solution can be extended later also to these use cases.
Great, thank you, Igor. I think our audience is quite interested in pricing in general today. So why have you decided for subscription-based pricing?
I mean, we follow the competitors-based pricing model. So we were looking at competitors which are following a similar goal of granting transparency along the entire supply chain. And yeah, we just decided to follow this example because we think that based on pricing for each vehicle, you can keep actually track of how much of expenses you have for this particular solution. Because at these compounds, for instance, or in mobility as a service in general, you have multiple sources of expenses you have. So I think, or we thought that this is the most transparent one in this case.
Thank you, Giulio. One last question from the audience is, who are your main competitors?
We obviously had a look in the competitor market as well, and we identified a number of different startups as well as big enterprises, which are, as I said, looking into supply chain transparency. And one of our main competitors is UVI, I would say, and Driveroo, because they are aiming for vehicle inspection to get transparency in that as well, using hardware or using AI. But in our opinion, we, with the asset communication and the centralized communication between those two partners, think that we have features that our competitors obviously haven't thought about yet.
Perfect. And with that, we will move on to the feedback from the project partner. Today with us, we have Nikolai Schröder, who is COO and co-founder of Finn. For those of you who do not know Finn is a mobility as a service provider offering you to subscribe to for your car instead of actually owning it. Welcome, Nikolai.
Thank you, Tessa. For everybody who knows Nikolai, don't be confused. We had a last-minute change. So my name is Torben. Was one of the people at Finn, supporting students, and there Nikolai is. So he can take over, and I just filled the remaining minute. Nikolai, please.
Thank you, Torben, and sorry for being a bit late. I wasn't aware that we're 20 minutes ahead of time. So yeah, thank you for having me today, and good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to congratulate Anna and Julio, Manuel, Igor, and Bersan, obviously, on the great presentation, but also would like to thank the entire team for all the hard work they put into this project. And at the same time, I also hope that everyone enjoyed working on the topic actually, and that we were also able to take a couple of learnings away from it going forward. Maybe just from the Fin perspective, I think at Fin, we are really striving to build a successful e-commerce platform for car subscription in the US and America. So the team in operation especially has the challenge of striving to become kind of the best fulfillment provider for cars in an online business, which is a whole new distribution channel for cars, obviously. And fulfillment is also what makes other e-commerce platforms successful. So the challenge we have that we can't just use a 3PL provider basically for that. And in that context, compounds, and I think the team has shown you what compounds are all about, are somewhat our fulfillment centers. And how well we manage them kind of defines a large portion of our customer experience. So it's super important and a super central process for us. That being said, I think the students did a great job in designing a product that gives us a bit of inspiration on how we can manage those compounds better going forward in the future. I think they quickly grasped what the problem is all about and what issues we have in the real world, asked the right questions. I think they also run a very thorough and insightful market analysis, which gives us some inspiration. And yeah, finally design really a product that is capable to give us a lot more transparency and also to better leverage our compounds. I'm also certain that while working on this project, the students got to know a couple of the biggest challenges we face here at Fin, especially in operations, which is kind of bridging the gap between the digital world on the one side with an e-commerce platform, but then also making it happen in the physical world. And I think especially one of the first visits to our compound partners was truly a reality check for the team. But it was definitely nice to see that they also embraced the struggle and were very eager to work hands-on on tackling those challenges. Maybe to quickly sum it up, I think it was great work together with the Jimba team. As I got to know them, they're all very smart and driven individuals, eager to take over ownership, very tech-savvy people, interested to work in very interesting areas like product management, engineering, design, but also data. And most of all, great people whom it is really fun to work with. More or less exactly the type of people we're also always looking for at Fin and try to get on board. So with that being said, the last two things, again, many thanks to the entire team, but also to CDTM for partnering with us. We are really much looking forward in the future for more exciting projects to come, hopefully. And I guess also for us at Fin, it was a relearning and yeah, looking forward to projects to come. And also, as Fin is steadily growing, not only in the US, but also here in Germany, I think if you're interested to learn more about the company and also opportunities, we have a couple of colleagues waiting in one of the breakout rooms, so feel free to join there and learn more about the company. With that being said, have a nice weekend, everyone, and a nice evening ahead of you. And I think enjoy the presentation with the next team, Ecomelia, that's going to come up now.
Thanks a lot, Nikolai. Jimba is doing a great work managing the assets for the transport industry. But what about our financial assets? Climate change is one of the most pressing issues we have right now, and more people are looking to take action, however struggle to find the most effective way to do so. Our very last team, Team Ecomelia, has found a very sustainable solution for you.
Climate change ruins our planet. If we continue like this, in 50 years, 3.5 billion people will suffer from intense heat, the homes of 200 million people will have been swallowed by the sea, and millions of species will have disappeared. We are concerned. We want to act, but to be honest, it's hard. We want to reduce global carbon emissions, but we wonder what's the most effective way for us as individuals to reduce carbon emissions and fight climate change. A great way to start is to change your behavior. By, for example, eating less meat or taking the train, you can have a real impact, but there are limits to this. You will always emit some carbon, and you just can't save more than you emit. So what else can we do? An area that is often overlooked are your personal financial means. Using your money to invest in projects with transparent and measurable impact, like for example, renewable energies, is a highly effective way to leverage your impact. By investing 100 euros per month, you can save up to 6 tons of carbon per year while generating a yield of 3% on your invested capital. So that actually sounds great. Why are we not already doing this? In fact, there is a big demand for sustainable investments. Especially for young investors, sustainability is an important investment criterion. In a survey we conducted with people concerned about climate change, 94% of people were interested or strongly interested in investments with direct impact on carbon emissions. The problem is, currently, no suitable solution exists. Direct impact investments do not fulfill the needs of young investors as they are often inflexible and inaccessible. But in general, 89% of the people in our survey were preferring direct impact investments over investments in sustainable stocks, where the impact is often indirect and not measurable. And this is why we created Ecomelia. With Ecomelia, we empower you to combat climate change through investments with measurable carbon impact. With Ecomelia, you can invest in renewable energies and forests, and by this have transparent and measurable carbon impact. You can invest through a flexible and liquid monthly savings plan with a low minimum investment, which democratizes the access to direct impact investments. Your money is invested in a diversified portfolio with a low risk that generates for you financial returns. And now let's see Ecomelia in action.
With Ecomelia, you can invest in climate projects. And that's exactly what we want to do now. We want to configure a new investment. On the first screens, you get some general information and an introduction to Ecomelia. Annalena has already covered this, so let's skip that. Now comes the interesting part. You can select the categories you would like to invest in. There are 3 categories available: solar, wind, and forest. And you can easily select the categories you would like to invest in. If you want to learn more about a category, say you would like to learn how forest projects actually create the impact, you can easily do that as well. Let's go in there. On the forest page, you can learn everything about forests as an investment. And you can also browse through the projects within this category. Actually, what happens when you invest into Ecomelia in the background is that Ecomelia invests your money into several projects within this category. That way, your portfolio is automatically diversified and the risk is limited without you having any extra effort. So let's go back now to the category overview and continue with all 3 categories. Now that we've selected the categories, you can weigh them. For example, you can focus on a high CO2 impact, and that way the categories with a higher CO2 impact will have a larger share within your portfolio. And that's exactly what we can see in the summary now. The forest category has a larger share in your portfolio. If you're fine with that allocation, you can confirm and continue with selecting how much you would like to invest. You can either do that one time or use the convenient monthly savings plan, and then select a suitable amount to invest. And then after confirming and continuing with the payment, you from now on create new impact every month already. Let's now say you've invested already a few months ago and now have a look at the portfolio. You can see how the value of the portfolio developed over time, and you can also see updates of the project that your money is invested in. That makes it much more transparent what actually happens with your money, and the impact is much more tangible as well. If you want to learn even more about the impact, we have a dedicated tab for that as well. So let's have a look at a summary of the past year here. You can see what impact you created using your investments in the past year, and you can also see what the whole Ecomelia community has achieved using your contributions. And if you want to have even more impact, you can of course easily share this on social media with your friends as well.
Thanks for showing us what you can do with Ecomelia. Just to highlight, it's very easy to create your individual impact portfolio on Ecomelia with a liquid and flexible savings plan. As well, as getting an overview of all the impact you create with the projects you're invested in, and create an overview of those in an easy-to-share format for your friends, family, and all the other people you like to impact. Ecomelia has been specifically designed for young millennials who care about climate change and want to have a sustainable impact. Speaking about our customers, let's talk about our business model as well. Ecomelia allows customers to invest in direct impact projects. Let's take, for example, 100 euros, which a customer invests in Ecomelia. We put that money directly in their name into direct impact projects, which generate impact as well as yield over the years. That money, which is returned then to the customer in a major share of 127 euros over a period of 6 years, while Ecomelia maintains a share of about 10 euros as margin to run its operations, spread the word, and also provide for risk and liquidity pooling. But it doesn't only end with a single customer. Ecomelia targets a global market, which reaches over 55 billion US dollars of assets under management in direct climate projects by individuals alone. And that market is far from done. There is a projected growth for that massive market of over 588% over the next decade. So there is a massive growth opportunity, which means by 2030, there will be over 4 trillion US dollars of assets under management. And that growth is driven mainly by more and more young people who make sustainability a priority in their investment decision, as well as more global politics initiatives pushing towards impact, for example, the European Green Deal or the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
It is an attractive market, so of course there are also other players. There are crowdfunding solutions, which allow you to invest in specific direct impact projects, but your money is locked for up to 7 years. Then there are sustainable stock funds, which provide more flexibility, but then the impact is intransparent and indirect. And then there are offsetting solutions, which basically allow you to donate your money for a measurable CO2 impact, but your money is gone, so there's no financial returns. Ecomelia is the only solution that combines the flexibility of a sustainable stock fund with the direct and measurable impact of crowdfunding and offsetting solutions. So what's next? After having developed the prototype in the first quarter and already sourced initial project partners, we are going to raise funds in the second quarter and start demo testing, beta testing with actual users as soon as possible to already generate a real CO2 impact in the second quarter of this year. In the third quarter, we are going to finally launch Ecomelia to the public and ramp up our marketing. Our goal is over the next 2 years to save over 100,000 tons of CO2 by investing over 25 million euros through our platform. We are Ecomelia and we want to fight climate change with you. And with that, I would like to thank you all for being here with us today. But before we wrap up, there's actually one more thing that we would like to share with you. Ecomelia is actually going to happen. Our project partner is already actively setting up the company and sourcing initial project partners to invest in. And he agreed to give 50 euros to the first investment on top of everybody who signs up today. So go to ecomelia.earth, sign up, get your 50 euros welcome bonus, and be a part of the journey. Thank you.
I will make sure to obviously scan that and not miss my 50 euros. Thank you very much, Team Ecomelia. And now it's time for questions. And the questions are already here, starting with, if you invest the money into several projects, how do you manage not to be regulated as a fund yourself?
So Ecomelia will be set up a special purpose vehicle which will actually give out bonds, and you can then purchase as a consumer a bond, and the bond itself or the special purpose vehicle will then invest in the direct impact projects. But our consumers, by their behavior, so in which projects they're interested in, will kind of influence how our bond is structured. And Ecomelia gives also the opportunity for you to resell your bond shares, so that we have a liquidity pool and can repurchase the shares, so it's fully liquid for you.
Thank you. Bilbo asks, do you think 3% annual returns are sufficient to incentivize the customers, given other opportunities with much higher yields like ETFs?
Yes, definitely, because Ecomelia cares first and foremost about the impact that is generated. And especially in comparison, as Flo told earlier, in comparison to offsetting solutions, you get a financial return in the first place. But the benefits why Ecomelia takes a bit of a bigger share than traditional ETF is that we directly have an impact which is measurable. So that's a big benefit, as well as the risk and liquidity pooling, which needs to be taken care of.
Our audience wants to know, what happens if the project fails to collect or reduce the CO2? Does the money go back to the user?
So we're actually working with a very experienced project partner who has already conducted about 100 projects in the space. And from then, not a single one has failed until yet, and every one of them managed to have the CO2 impact they promised. But if one of the projects would fail, would have the liquidity pool, which means there is actually not a big risk for you as a customer.
And finally, our audience wants to know, how do you determine how much CO2 a project issues?
So for most of the projects that we have, they're actually in the area of sustainable energy. So you can very well calculate how much energy of the previous energy source in that country was saved by specifically that, for example, solar plant or that wind farm that was built. So that's how we calculate it.
Thank you very much, Team Ecomelia. Last but not least, we want to hear from Team Ecomelia's project partner, Dr. Jörg Ovelia. Jörg is the founder of Gemeinsames Ziel, a small startup to make it their mission to help individuals take climate action. Jörg, we're really excited to hear your opinion on the team solution.
Hi, Jose. Thanks for having me here. Looking back, we started end of October with a very broad problem definition. In this case, it was phrased as follows: how can we get people to act to reduce CO2? The team quickly zoomed into the financial segment, mainly because everyone can participate depending on their financial situation. Now, after 12 weeks, they have developed a product which is really unique and can actually be introduced in the market. So I think they have done a tremendous job, and interaction was always very professional, and they showed a great amount of commitment from their side. So I really want to thank all of you, Annalena, Florian, Richard, and Tobias, for the excellent work you pulled off. So where do we go next? We plan to introduce the product into the market over the coming months. We will begin by testing customer acquisition through various marketing channels. So I encourage everyone who is interested in reducing their own CO2 and likes what they saw about the product to do two things. Number one, go to the landing page and sign up for free. And number two, spread the word to other people that you think might be interested in reducing their CO2. With this little commercial, I'm handing back to Tessa and Jose.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jörg. We are very happy you enjoyed working with the team. Now that's it, and we're done with all our product pitches. But before we end this evening, we're very much inviting our scientific director, Professor Jörg Clausen, to the stage to sum up the evening for us.
It's really my pleasure to have been here and to have seen all these great projects here. It's also been quite a journey for myself. So I just printed this picture here. So what you see here is kind of the younger me, 17 years ago, actually doing my MPD presentation. And yeah, ever since I've been very close to the CDTM, very happy now to be in my role here as scientific director of the CDTM, and kind of also, of course, a big thank you from all my colleagues of the board here. And yeah, I think one thing which I really kind of experienced when comparing all the years here is how much the NPD also moved from a partnership where we only had like the big established industry players, like in our case it was Siemens, to like a lot of startups, and even a lot of these startups are even coming directly from CDTM. So much about my general kind of reflection, and I just want to kind of go a little bit into each of these fantastic presentations and fantastic project and product ideas. So first one, Team Akura. I think it's really a super valuable idea to increase the efficiency of the care process. And one question that I also had myself is, how can these planned nursing activities be now combined with emergency responses? So if kind of a patient puts up this clicker button and says, I need someone, so can you then just continue your planned nursing activity in the same room of the emergency patient? And so somehow kind of try to have the planned activities and the emergency activities really fit in well together. But great project. Second, Olga, the project about kind of tracking the baby's habits. So I'm myself a father of 2 boys, now already 4 and 7. So luckily they are mostly sleeping through the nights now. But yeah, I've been going through quite some nights here. And so any support that I could have gotten here would have been really very much appreciated. So I have 2 thoughts here. So one is, could you perhaps let the health insurances pay for apps for the app usage? So you see it a lot in the health sector. And the other one is to see perhaps there's like one focus group that you could target initially, and this is the group which is perhaps under special supervision by the child services, the health child services, and perhaps this would be a nice way also to get in close interaction with kind of the responsible social workers who are taking care of these families. Third team, Team Swadeo. I have to say, I do most of my shopping online, but I'm really a big fan of doing my grocery shopping in person. And so, yeah, I think to kind of improve this process and bring some of the digital bits here would be fantastic. So I think what I've seen here in the demo is it was like you had your kind of basket, you had your goods, you had your phone. So it was kind of 3 things that you had to interact. So I think one thing definitely, I think, which is a big need, is a place to put this in your shopping cart. And I also have to describe yourself like one of my biggest pains in this shopping segment. And this is to find a specific item in a supermarket. So I think like if you also implement a good search functionality and an easy navigation feature to show me where you can find this item, this would be probably the killer feature for myself. And then we're moving on to Team Jimba, which works with the CDTM startup Finn. And so I think it's fascinating to look behind the curtains of mobility as a service. And so given that if you look at this customer facing front end, and this is all automated, all digital, I first couldn't really believe how little automation we see on the back end. So I think it's definitely important to also bring the same level of automation that we know from the back end, from the user interfaces, also to the back ends, and improve efficiency here. And in this way, really make mobility more sustainable, more and also kind of more reachable for bigger parts of our population. And finally, Team Ecomelia. So I have to say, I'm myself invested in 2 different photovoltaic plants. that are operated by a cooperative in our suburb. And so this was really kind of very dear to my heart kind of investment opportunity. But these kind of investment opportunities right now, they are only limited. So in our case, it was limited to the citizens of this municipality, and the opportunities, they come up very infrequently. So I therefore really see it as a great opportunity to see how you can make these kind of investments easier, so that you can get these sustainable investments up and running at a much larger scale. So as you've seen, we've got really 5 fantastic projects. It was so fascinating to look at these. And I'm just very thankful to be part of this journey here at the CDTM. I'm very much looking forward to see how many of these projects are actually turning into life in the next months and years. And we will see how they will come up in the real life and change the lives of a lot of people. So thank you so much for these insights, and I wish you all a great Friday night. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Jörg, for your perspective. This now marks tonight's event as finished. But before we turn off, we want to thank everyone who made this project and this presentation today possible. First of all, a very big thanks to the students. Your long nights and hard work really paid off.
Secondly, a big thank you to all our project partners to come with us on this MPD journey this semester.
Third, we want to thank all the lecturers and all the coaches who carried their students throughout this journey.
Fourthly, we want to thank all the helpers involved at this event. Thank you for making it possible.
And last but not least, we want to thank you who are watching at home and who are making this event possible. Thanks a lot.
To learn more about the product pitches and the teams, we strongly encourage you to join the live rooms with the teams. You can find the links on cdtm.de/livestream. And with that, we say goodbye and have a very good weekend.